He's 15 and he likes to. Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying. I didn't do the 30s thing while I was pregnant, my whole 30s. So. 40s aesthetic. I thought it was 40. Yeah. But thank you. Yes, also my 40s. I like to channel them.
Good evening. I would ask, please, if you have cell phones, to please turn them off at this time. And I'd like to take a moment to actually welcome each of you to our council town hall meeting this evening. I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Over the past year, our planning department has hired a professional transportation consultant, TSW, to draft a transportation plan for our city. The draft is entitled Madison on the Move, and it has been published and is on the city's website for your review. Part of the process has been a series of citizens' meetings over the past year, culminated in a draft that we received on March 19th of this year. I ask you to please understand that the draft is simply just a draft. It has not been formally reviewed or adopted by our city council. The recommendations have not been fully vetted by our public safety officials, and our council have not fully reviewed your thoughtful comments received as we have reviewed your thoughtful comments received as late as today. And we would not accept the plan either in whole or in part without significant input from each of you, and that's why you're here this evening. But we also understand that this draft will need to be revised before adoption. We also know that the contents of the plan will impact the community for years to come. But we're assembled tonight for one main reason: to listen to you. We want to hear what you like and what you don't like, and what suggestions you can offer to improve the draft. No decisions will be made. No votes will be taken tonight. We just simply want to hear from you. But if you haven't already, please feel free to email us with your comments or concerns. So tonight we offer you up to 5 minutes per person, if needed, to tell us what's on your mind. But I would also ask you as well, don't be repetitive. If someone gets up and say this, please don't get up and say the same thing. And I hope some of you do have a spokesperson from your group so it won't be the same thing repeatedly over and over and over again. To ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak, we ask that you try to be succinct. This is not a debate, and communications back and forth will only be allowed to offer clarity why a recommendation is being made. We do have our consultant here tonight, this evening, Bert Kirkendall, planning staff to offer explanations about recommendation. And I would ask each of you to please respect each other's opinions. And as I said earlier, the council will not be taking votes tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you here tonight. We're glad we're having this community town hall meeting. Please tell us what's on your mind. And I ask again, let us do it respectfully by respecting one another's opinion. And at this time, I believe our council member Bessie has a couple of comments she would like to make.
Again, I echo what Mayor Perryman said. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. We're looking forward to your input and your comments. The point with this was an 80-plus page document. And honestly, I thought it was pretty complicated and to interpret. And I personally feel like some of the issues, the primary issues that are coming up, might have been because of some interpretation or some data omission. There was the three. Let me just talk about the 3 points real quick, and I know you will come and discuss those as well, but I kind of want to fill you in. First of all, of course, the Kolb Street red dotted lines that are shown. So those are there for future suggested opinions about where we could put future connectivity if anything happens with that back area by the cemetery. The big cemetery is going there. I don't believe any of the council has any interest in doing anything that would endanger the historic district. So while our lovely planner who put this together probably wasn't as aware about how passionate we are about that. So I'm just saying that was only for sort of a future thing. In no way was it meant to be or replicate or be a bypass or reflect in any way a bypass. We as a council, we have been working on the bypass. In fact, there was one map in the thing that shows where the bypass is, which is arching on the north side and arching way down on the south side, and that's where it is. So I appreciate being hyper alert to these sorts of things, but rest assured that's not a bypass. The other thing is the one-way streets. Now, just to be fair, some of it was clarified, but on one hand you had to go to page 47 for some information, and then you had to go over page 57 to get the rest of it about how the one-way streets work. In short, from Washington Street to Central for Old Post, which is pure commercial, church, all of that, no residential whatsoever, the idea was to make it one way and have parking on one side. The same was for Academy, only up to where commercial stopped. In this case, it wouldn't be all the way to Central. It would be right about the Methodist Church would be the parking, and then one way. So it wasn't. It never. Again, it was somewhat misstated that Academy would have parking all the way down. That was never going to be a thing. But of course, again, appreciate the hyper alertness and the attention to detail about what's going on. Otherwise, the idea was to do, a one-way street on one of them, one way the other way, and then have bike path, walking path. Everybody walks their dogs there. Everybody rides their bikes. Everybody does that. If that's not acceptable, that's fine. I've had some really good, I thought it was kind of cool, but I've heard really good arguments against it. Thank you, Floyd. And honestly, so that's what we're here for. Again, we have this as a guide, but we get to kind of, mold it to what we want, and our ears are wide open. And that also goes true for, and the last thing was somebody said something about Dixie, and oh my gosh, it's going to be a major highway, and I'm like, whoa, wait, that's my street. All of a sudden it gets real personal, doesn't it? No, but, so I see it's detailed as a major collector. I get that. This is kind of this overarching view of how things work. We know, as Madison residents, that no one, for the most part, uses Dixie to get to Rutledge. I mean, they might if you want something scenic, but if you're on a mission, you're going to jump over on 278. Or if you want to get on Dixie, a lot of times if you're already on Main Street, you're going to go all the way down to Confederate and jump over that way. I mean, very rarely will anybody make a turn there at Danny Randy's house and then hit Dixie and then go out as a major collector. And I do believe as we go out, Dixie Highway could be considered a major collector, which is defined as trips, longer trips. Minor collectors are streets that have shorter trips. I'm just going down the block to see my friend. Major collectors, I'm going to Rutledge. All right, so that's kind of how that's defined. But in no way is there going to be widening, is there going to be, it's the way it's defined. So again, I am grateful to you. I thank you for your hyper alertness. We're going to rock and roll on this, and we're happy you're here to help us get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours.
I don't think they can hear you.
The floor is yours. I will ask if you would, 5 minutes or less,
Sign
because
in.
there may be a lot of people there who want to speak this evening.
Yes, and sign in, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. First, let me applaud your efforts in trying to address traffic. I've been standing before you for the last 10 years or so talking about traffic.
There's a couple of seats up front if anyone want to come down and sit. There's a couple of seats up front. Excuse me.
Okay. Thank you. Many of you know that I have been up here repeatedly over the last 10 years talking about traffic and our need to do something about traffic. And I applaud the efforts that we've undertaken here, or that you've undertaken to address that issue. One of the critical issues is truck traffic through town, and that's a tough one to address right now. It is difficult for the residents, particularly on Main Street where I live, and all through downtown. I would urge you to form a little internal working group amongst the city to work proactively with the county and with the governor's office, with the state legislature, with GDOT, to accelerate construction of that bypass link connecting 83 South and 83 North. The state has poured a ton of money into Rivian, and that is going to impact us in ways that I don't think we can even imagine now, because it's right here with us, and there's too much money invested in it now to just walk away, so something's going to get built there. The Highway Department is building new overpasses on I-20 now, new access roads for that project. So I would encourage you as a city government to work with the county and to try to leverage the investment the state has already made into Rivian into acceleration of completion of that bypass. If the state's going to take action that's going to increase our traffic problems, then the state, to my mind, should step up and try to solve the problems. So that's one thing that I would encourage you to do. The second thing that I think you could undertake, or I would encourage you to look at, is if there is a connection on 83 North and 441 North, just connecting those two highways, and if the city of Madison took over responsibility of maintenance for 441 through the city, then the city could prohibit truck traffic or through traffic through the city. It would be a slight inconvenience to truckers coming who want to go, like, say, from Monroe and get on 83 South towards Monticello. A slight inconvenience in that they would have to go a few miles out of the way, take a few extra minutes, but they could then, if there's a connector on the north side of town, come down 83, cut over to 441, and take the bypass down to where the sheriff's department is now, and turn south on 83 there. And that would keep that truck traffic out of downtown. And I would encourage you to at least look at doing that. I will take Betsy and the rest of you at your word that you don't intend to do things to hurt the historic district. And along those lines, I would suggest taking that Culp Street connector just out of the plan. If that property, if the Pritchett Farms property is developed, and yeah, there probably, even if it's not, there probably does need to be some connection between Washington Street on the north side and the areas around Walmart and Ingalls and that type of thing. But I think there are existing roads, or there could be new roads further out past Oil Mill to connect it a little bit further out of town that ensures the protection of the historic district. Because if that road ever gets cut through, you know what's going to happen. People are going to start using it, and that's going to impact the district, which is just an incredibly valuable asset to the city. I heard a comment in your work session that historic tourism was on the decline. Well, as I understand it, historic tourism in the last year brought $61 million in economic activity to the city of Madison, and I think that's a record. I may be wrong, but I think that's the highest it's ever been, so I don't really see it as a decline. I also would, there's an awful lot in that transportation plan about trails and bike paths. Those are nice things to have, but a trail is not transportation. Now, I will say a bike path can be. When I was finished my first year of law school, I had a summer job. I rode a bike to work every day. Rain or shine, I rode my bike. That was what I had then. So a bike can be transportation, but it's primarily recreation. And I would love to see the city's T-SPLOS sales revenue spent on doing something that's a little more productive than more trails. They're nice to have, but put that money into that connector between 83 and 441. You know, don't use it for that. And when we talk about parking, you know, there was a proposal a year or two ago to build a parking deck when the Washington Street Gateway project was ongoing. And all of a sudden, that parking deck just went away. It was nixed from the plan, and apartments were proposed there. Well, that project it appears to have been completely abandoned. So now we have no parking deck and no apartments there. Can we go back and revive the parking deck issue? There are parking decks in downtown Athens that are very attractive. They work really well. They blend in with the community, design well. It can be a real boon. Can we go back to that idea? And then we don't have to worry about parking on these narrow roads like Academy, even if it's close to town. And finally, when we talk about interviews and this interview process that's gone on for a long time with stakeholders, I looked at the list of people who were on the advisory committee, and I may be wrong, but I did not see anybody that I recognized as being from the historic district or living in the district on that advisory committee. I think the historic district residents are a pretty important stakeholder in this process. And so I would encourage you, as revisions go forward, to consult with the people in the historic district and bring them into the process, because the district is such an economic positive for the community. It just should not be ignored. Thank you very much.
And I would ask you again, please, to try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, because there are a lot of people in the room who might want to speak this evening. Thank you.
Mayor and council, thank you. Is it? Thanks for letting us be up here and talk. I'm Oliver Booker. Everybody calls me OJ. And I've lived here since 2009. And I'm a member of the vestry, the church board of Church of the Advent. And that's why I'm standing here. Also, Annie Burris is also a member of our parish, and she also is on the vestry. Oh. Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. Maybe I'll holler. Yeah, how about that? Would that be okay? Unfortunately, I'm one of those citizens who has observations but no solution. I know that's irritating to most people. It was to me. But we wanted to talk about three things that we would like some consideration about as we go forward, as you go forward with this plan. Oh, yes, and one more.
First of all, we would like, I'm Annie Hunt Burris, 912 Dixie Avenue. We would like to recognize members of the Church of the Advent who we have fiduciary responsibilities to. Could you please stand or wave? Thank you. And Jesus said, "We're more than two are gathered." Okay, go ahead. And just for the audience's sake, we prepared in advance and handed out tonight this reference, and everybody up in front of you and the good staff and the consultant also have a hard copy of it. If you're interested, let us know.
Talk in a microphone.
In reading through the document, it's a very detailed document. However, we didn't see some things that we probably would have expected to see. For one, I apologize now. Sorry. We didn't see some things that we probably would have expected to see. For example, the plan being developed in concert with law enforcement, and you've already told us that it has not been through there. Or in concert with Morgan County Commissioners. I'm not sure if that has been broached or not. We just don't know that. It wasn't in the plan.
Ask yes or no.
Has that, we don't know if it's been, if the commissioners have been approached about
Can you
it.
just say yes or no if the county commission?
No, it was it was pertinent to the city, so we did not involve the commissioners at this time.
Though all of our streets, our transportation connects directly through the county.
True, but we can't tell them what to do with their streets.
No, but we could ask their feedback and their insights on what makes.
Sure.
Also, was this plan developed in concert with? Was this plan developed in concert with CSX and Norfolk Southern Railways? That was another question we had.
Yes or no?
Yes or no?
Did we know?
I'm aware of no conversations with the county or the railroad.
Okay.
Or DOT, so it looks like probably the majority of your questions, that
Yes.
answer would be no.
Okay, so with DOT, no.
That's not correct.
It's not?
Oh, sorry, thank you.
So yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, DOT.
Okay, good. Also, was it developed in concert with the 1974 Madison Historic District citizens? And we've already talked about that. I think we've already heard.
No.
Yes? No? No?
Yes, no?
There was a citizen on the committee.
There was? Okay, good.
That was Brittany Cruz.
I must have missed it. I apologize.
Brittany Cruz, she lives on Main Street.
Okay. Couple of other things, though. I read the report, and it's an excellent report. It's very detailed. I was surprised. It was very well written. However, I didn't see enough detail in there for me to make, or for us to make an assessment of the impact it would have on our parish. When you look at Cobb, for example, and I think Betsy addressed this a little bit, that Cobb has that right-of-way. If enforced, or if Cobb was widened, that would eliminate a lot of our parking. Oh, pardon. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I pardon. Okay.
Okay, I'm a separate individual and take less than a minute.
Come on.
I promise. Girl Scout honor, 912 Dixie Avenue. I would like to suggest for your consideration, and I have forwarded to a couple of you, I don't have everybody's address, that you consider in this process that Dixie Highway Avenue, it's Avenue once it's in the city, but Highway otherwise, be considered to apply to Georgia Department of Transportation that we be a scenic highway. That will help celebrate the historic access, the fact that this is part of the first paved highway system in the country that connected states. It went actually from Canada to Miami, and it will help preserve the vegetation beauty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Angela Daniel, and I'm here on behalf of Calvary Baptist Church, which is located 184 Academy Street. And the traffic that, when I leave Calvary and to turn on Washington, if I'm going to turn left, it's hard to get out. You can't see for cars that's at Amicis. And yesterday, I was turning left, and this car that was coming from 83, it was saying I could come on out. But you can't do that because cars coming from that way. So I would like for it to be like a one-way street going up that way, turning onto Academy Street, not turning off Academy Street. You get it? Oh, one way.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Then I'm brief.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Karen Massey, and I live at 349 East Central Avenue, which is sort of a neighborhood without a neighborhood, because we have church property all around us. I think everyone appreciates the fact that the city is really looking at the future. There's a lot at stake right now. I think we all know that we're at a crossroads, and there are things that are going to happen in Morgan County that will affect the city that we don't have any control over. And I'd like for this conversation to be about what our primary assets are and what we can do to protect them, both short-term and long-term. One of our greatest assets is we have a vibrant downtown core. And in order for it to flourish and maintain its presence now, we need safe sidewalks, safe streets, useful parking. It is becoming increasingly difficult to park and shop downtown. I live where I can walk to downtown. I try not to drive so that somebody else can get a parking place. There needs to be strict law enforcement for speeding. I I would say, I would think it'd be great if Madison could become the next Ludowici, and we just create a doggone speed trap downtown, and maybe exempt those that have a business license in Morgan County. But I would say, stop those trucks if they're speeding, if they've got a broken taillight, stop them. I know other city commissioners from other towns, for instance Darien, that has Highway 17 that runs straight through the middle of it. And how did they solve their problem? They did a scenic byway. So I'd say I am all for, and I wouldn't mind sitting 5 minutes behind a police car to pull over a truck. I think it would just make my day. The other thing is our historic buildings in our neighborhoods. And we need to take our resources and be very specific about them. And I think we need to have parking designated for city employees, for the downtown workforce, for locals and tourists. And any attempt to discourage use of Main Street and encourage the use of the neighborhood roads is not the right thing to do. And I can tell you, living on the side of the Baptist church and coming down to the end of the street and turning left onto Pine Street, our streets are not designed for heavy traffic. They're lanes, they're not even two-way streets. If somebody's landscape guy is parked there, you're going to have to drive into somebody's grass or back up all the way. I mean, there's just no way. But people are naturally doing this because they don't want to sit through the lights and the backed up traffic going through town. And it's backed up because we have too many trucks. So I would say a priority should be to budget for property acquisition, for the construction of parking.
1 minute left.
Okay? Then I'm going to just skip down and say that I think the planning decisions that are being affected right now are going to have a huge effect on the future of the digest, and that we hope all of the citizens that you'll take our comments seriously. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Russell Brooks. I live at 1970 Atlanta Highway, which is not in the city. And I don't even get to vote in the city, so whatever. But anyway, I've been living on my little tract of land over there since 1980. It is one of those tracts that I have looked at on all the maps that makes the west side loop around Madison. So I think you need to consider us, because we're not in the city. Your map is showing at least 20 to 30 homes that it would have to take out, including a church, somewhere along in there, to get through there, to make that loop. And you'd come right through the Pritchard Farm, basically what I'm looking at, and come around through there and come into 83 somewhere down there on the lower side below us. So I think the city, and I'm going to say this straight, the city has dropped the ball from 20 years ago when they should have had the bypass and had some good routes that they could have made to catch Brownwood Road and go right on around. They missed them. Now, our population and our number of houses around the edges of the city of Madison, are you going to have to go somewhere closer to Rutledge to come back around with a truck route than you are going to have to go close to Madison? There's just no way around it, because you're going to take out houses that have been there many years, or new houses that have been built there over the years. I was looking at one of your maps, and it shows two arrows, one pink, one at the top side, Hidden Head Road, and the other one, I don't know what it is, way down here.
That's the other part of the bypass.
If you want to go below that far down below I-20, you'd be doing fine. But if you stay above I-20 and you get in there where you want to, where you might hug the city of Madison a little closer, you're going to have a problem. You got AT&T, all their stuff there with the lines double there that they've just put in new ones. You've got churches, you've got new houses, you've got a railroad to cross, a lot of that kind of thing that's going to cause some problems. I know it may not be 20 years and you may never get the money at this time to put it together from the DOT. But please consider us. We're the ones that's going to pay the price for that truck route when you start going around through there. So we need y'all to think about what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Juarez. I just recently started getting involved within the community about a year, so please excuse me for my ignorance. It might be something that you guys already talked about, but I like to bring up the concerns because maybe it's brought up maybe once or twice, but repetitive is always good. I live on Hanover Drive, so we're all here. We know we're all here for the safety and betterness of the community. I just want to bring a concern and maybe a better safetyness for them. Within the community, Hanover has some potholes, and I want you guys to kind of take that more into consideration. Maybe we can get that going, maybe fixing them up and everything. Also, in the morning times,
I'm sorry. Hanover has, did you say, was it potholes?
Potholes,
Okay, very
yes.
good. Sorry,
Yes.
thank you.
Coming off of Hanover between Dixie Highway Avenue and Oil Mill Road, the sun aligns, that road aligns right with where the sunrise, so it's very hard to see people when they're walking. A lot of people are walking in the morning time throughout the time to kind of stop by and put the horses out there with that family. So if we can get some sidewalks there as well, either side of the road, that would be fantastic. And my mission statements within this last 2 years that I've been here as well have always been bridging the community, bridging the Hispanic community to the English-speaking community, and bridging the younger generation with the older generation. With that being said, I did not receive this information without talking to people, and I'm not much of a reader. So I recommend that you guys look more into maybe being able to reach out people in audio form or in video form. That way it does reach the younger generation. Because if it wasn't for me reaching out to my community and asking them what's going on, I wouldn't be here at all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Ken, if you would put my slides up. I'm Paul Anderson. I'm a resident of Academy Street, and I'm also happen to be a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I do appreciate the opportunity to present a couple of suggestions that may be helpful. This first slide that you're showing represents the area that we were discussing, the Cobb Street connections through the historic district. This plan proposes a linear park on the northwest side of the railroad tracks, which would be served to be an amenity and a buffer to any new development on the far side of the railroad. Paths would only allow pedestrians to access the historic district in downtown Madison. No streets or vehicles cross over the tracks to the historic district. The new development is proposed to consist of residential streets mirroring Madison's historic grid layout in the historic district, allowing compatible new residential development, similar to that that's currently taking place along 4th Street, to to be constructed. Custom owner-built designs would be allowed for new homes rather than cookie-cutter speculative development. The development would be accessed from Wellington Street and Oil Mill Road. No trucks would be allowed in the new neighborhood other than service vehicles such as moving vans and delivery trucks. The objection by the Historic Madison Coalition to allowing of vehicular access via Oil Mill Road is acknowledged and appreciated. However, I would point out that denying access to the southern end of any new development would simply force those residents to utilize Washington Street and route through downtown and possibly bypassing using Main Street, Old Post Road, Academy Street, because they're going to need to go to Ingalls and Walmart and all those places down there on Eatonton Road. So I think that having the connection on Oil Mill is a reasonable compromise, but of course, if you only had one, I think you would just simply force the vehicles around the northern end of the town. The second, what that shows is the grid. It's just kind of diagrammatic, and the green park, and then the yellow dotted lines represent pedestrian connections. They wouldn't necessarily have to be straight lines. They could be scenic and rambling sort of pedestrian paths. So I think it could be a nice amenity for the town. Let me go to the next slide, and I will wrap this up very quickly. Well, it's over here. Thank you, Ken. This is down where Eatonton Road and Main Street converge. The notion here is to to create a new traffic circle as a bold solution for this intersection, utilizing the lightly used Walton Park. The proposed circle would eliminate the typical traffic backup for vehicles accessing South Main Street from US 278, and at the same time would slow traffic to and from Eatonton Road. This proposed traffic circle would become a new landmark entrance to the city, welcoming visitors to the historic district. The landscaped circle would feature a flag plaza, a Madison Historic District monument sign, and maybe a centerpiece memorial statue of James Madison with full illumination at night. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to share some ideas with you. Thank you.
Mayor, since we have a quick lull, may I make a comment?
Sure.
I think, Steve, give me just a second. I'll be very brief, and we'll get to you, Steve. Because the purpose of this meeting is exactly what we're doing right now, and that's hearing what you have to say. And when we hear issues that maybe the process wasn't what you had in mind and there's no real input, that's what this meeting is for. We are taking, and I love this, I think, and the way everyone has been so civil, I think is wonderful. I would like to see more of this type of thing as we go and other issues going forward in the city. I think it's really important to listen to our citizens. I'm really gratified at the tone and the fact so many people showed up. On a personal note, just let me say, I live in the historic district. I started my public service career in Madison as 4 years on the Historic Commission. I followed that up with 4 years on the council as the liaison to the HPC. And I have a full understanding, as I know a lot of you do, of the importance of the historic district to the character of Madison and to the importance, the economic importance of the district to our businesses. It's critical to the city, I think. And I think a lot of us on the council kind of appreciate that, and sometimes maybe when these things come up, you think we're maybe a little cavalier about it, but there are a number of us up here who understand the importance of the district and are concerned that we be very cautious about any changes that might adversely affect that. And that's what this meeting's doing tonight, and I appreciate all very much your coming and telling us what you think. Thank you. And sorry, Steve.
Mayor and Council, I'm Steve Whitkin. I live on Old Post Road, and I just have a couple of quick things. One has been mentioned before, and that's the coordination or collaboration between our city and our county. And we just got kind of the answers, but we can't ignore that, something this big. I just really encourage us before we go too much further, and I don't know whether this will be something that the county commissioners and the city council talks about tomorrow, but that's got to be an absolute. We can't do anything without the county being involved, and obviously, because the county gets a large amount of their wealth from the city, they've got an interest. So I would ask you to do that. Since 2007, when we moved here, we've been talking about a truck bypass, and so I got it. What would be helpful for me as a citizen is not a specific timeline, because once you throw something out, then we get locked in on why didn't you make it. But we need something realistic of, okay, if we start today, in 2037, that first truck's going to plow through the northern bypass. What are the steps involved? Who has to get involved? The city, the county is certainly a first step, and then DOT and the state and funding and all these things. But I'd just be very interested in some kind of macro level, and macro means something beyond the two arrows. That's what I used as a general when we would attack. I'd say, let's attack this way. And then we would refine that plan into figuring out where each tank was going to go. So that would be helpful for me to understand what is realistic. Or let's just stop talking about a bypass and say, hey, suck it up, gut it out, citizens. You're going to have to live with this, or move to Covington, wherever the answer is. The final thing I would just offer, one-way streets are okay. I live on Old Post, and, God bless them, people are using that as a bypass now. And one other thing that really strikes me is it is used a lot for pedestrians walking, and the number of young mothers and strollers walking down Old Post and have cars driving at the posted speed limit, 25, which is way too fast, not slow down as they pass two mothers, two puppy dogs, and a toddler toddling along the street is just appalling. Now, I could solve it by sitting out there with my shotgun or parking a motorcycle and having a hairdryer replicating a radar gun, but that's not realistic. And the police chief, to his credit, a couple of months ago at one of his town halls, said we can't integrate our traps along 25-mile-an-hour residential streets. Okay, I got it. I'm not a big advocate of speed bumps, and on Old Post Road, we had two speed humps that allow the landscape truck to get up and go airborne with both their four wheels and the trailer. But those are the kinds of solutions. If we're going to have one-way streets, we've got to be able to address realistic enforcement and protection of citizens. It'll only take one catastrophic stroller drug under a car for us all to get even more excited, and I'd just like to see us get more excited. Finally, I just appreciate this plan. This is a draft. It's initial, like in more, plans are great, and then the only gets a vote and things all change. And so I appreciate allowing us to have input, and I would ask as you go down, I don't want the next headline or chance for us to review it as City Council approved transportation plan without us maybe having a second meeting. I mean, this is so important to the flavor and quality of this city that we need that, we deserve it. Thank you very much.
I'm Paul Robin. I live at 292 Academy Street. I appreciate the opportunity that you are taking to listen to the population have its say on this rather unusual and complicated plan that's been set forth. I just want to try to pull together a few strands of things that have already been said. Councilman Joyce made one comment about the importance of involvement. We just heard from Steve about another dimension of involvement. And we all seem to treasure the community quality of Madison. We think we're unique, and I think we probably are. We have some a great culture here that I think is built upon the idea of a lot of inclusiveness and a lot of involvement, that nobody's left out, that there's not a decision-making class and a undecision-making class. Now, none of it's perfect, to be sure. But I think we're also in an age where we rely so much on experts and consultants and spending $75,000 on this plan, which I think we are seeing many defects in, and a degree of naivete that could have been, I think, corrected or never occurred had there been rather well-planned and intensive community involvement from the get-go. And so if this plan needs to go back to the drawing boards, I would hope that, as you see here, you have interested people. There's no shortage of people who will have things to say. And I must say, I think there's a good chance that a lot of them may be very intelligent things that they have to say about this plan. So I hope, as a matter of policy moving forward, you use the experts when you need them, but rely on the city, the people who pay the taxes, the people who've invested in these houses, the people who conform to the historic preservation plans. Rely on them to make the initial inputs as to how this city should move ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I, just to clarify, I would like to clarify one thing. Paul, I bet you guys were moving from farm to academy. You had a lot going on, but we held 3 or 4, how many, Monica, public sessions? 5?
1 public open house, 3 online surveys, and 2 public advisory group meetings.
Can you say that louder?
Can you go to the microphone?
Just because, and that's fair, we clearly we need even more, and we need more people to turn out for these things, but to be fair, there was, anyway, please, Molly.
Just 1 public open house, 3 online surveys, and 2 public advisory group meetings, as well as these hearings now, which help inform the final plan as well.
Okay.
Since I've been addressed, could I just respond?
Yeah, by all means, sorry, and thank you.
There is, again, I spoke against experts, but there is an expertise in how to involve communities. And I think that online surveys are pretty well down the line. How many online surveys do we get each day? And I find with particularly the community survey, which I participated in, was so vague and seemed just, was not really involving me in any way, shape, or manner in terms of where the future of the city was going to go. And I know you've taken results of those, at least you've said you've taken results of those things seriously. Getting the community involved in face-to-face circumstances, smaller groups, and not around a vague issue, but around a very specific issue. And I think that's what brought people out here tonight, was they saw specifics. And if you'd have said, let's have a big meeting about what should happen in the future in Madison, I don't think very many people would have come. But now you've said, we think we might do this, and wow, people are talking. So there's a technology to getting people involved. I'm not an expert at that, but there are community organizers and people who know how to create groups and to draw groups in to make them work. So anyway, that's all I'll say.
Hi, my name is Christy Kearns. We live at 567 4th Street. We are one of the newer homes. We did invest in property, a lot to build, and invested in a home that is to be our forever home. The reason we moved to Madison was at the time we had a 3-year-old daughter.
Is it mic on? Is it mic on?
Yeah.
Pardon? Is it? Okay. I just didn't want to blast everybody out because my voice can be a little strong. But anyway, we moved here because at the time we made the decision to do so, we had a 3-year-old daughter. She is now 11 years old. We are in the place that my husband called just basically to have the ideal childhood. Okay. Today, she and probably 6, 8, 10 of the neighborhood children, and there's 20-something around us, all were going down 4th Street, go down to the pond, and they were all catching tadpoles and having fun and not playing on iPads and not being on cell phones and not in front of a computer game. They're playing in the mud and getting dirty and having fun and having the ability to walk and ride their bikes up and down the streets without much fear of getting run over. It's just a good, clean, solid place for them to do so. And I just kind of want to advocate for them, for this ability to continue to have an ideal childhood. So, thank you.
I don't know what that meant. My name's Ginger McFadden, and I have 2 addresses, same place. It's either 120 First Street or 120 Old Post Road. So since Old Post Road is involved, I'm going to claim that as my residence today. And I'm going to segue into what this previous speaker just mentioned. I'm in a position downtown walking around all the time, meeting people, answering questions, where's a good place to eat, that type of thing. Walking with our dogs, ideally every day, but we don't always get to every day, through the historic district, and the people we see, and the activity, and my essence that I get in my life in living here is the fact that everybody I talk to who's not from here embraces it. They fall in love with Madison. They fall in love with a simpler time, with graciousness, with beautifully maintained homes. A lot of that has come from the Historic Preservation District and the efforts that have gone in by the people to adhere to the preservation ordinances and maintain their properties and just create a wonderful living environment. I think it's very, very difficult for anyone who hasn't either been raised in an environment like that or experienced living there in an environment like that to have an appreciation to the impact of making changes that what I've reckoned. I couldn't get on the website to pull up the thing. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but so I will confess I did not see the detailed plan. But I've heard the two-way streets. I have pros and cons on that. One is, I want, if it comes from, if to get into my garage, if Old Post Road is one way from Washington south or west, I have to go through the intersection. I have to go to Main Street, turn left, and then turn left to get onto Washington Street to get into the garage. If it's going the other way, I have to do the same thing to get, to go anywhere. That's just one person. It's just, the other thing I looked at is, and this was when you saw the Kolb street extension of widening that and going over, and I thought, the railroad tracks are going to be an impediment to that, and unless they pull up the lines, there's already been conflict between East Jefferson, West Jefferson, and West Washington Street, two crossings, one crossing and the overpass. A Kolb Street would be another crossing or overpass. So those are issues that I don't know if they were addressed in the plan or not. But I think the painful part for me was it appeared to be a lack of respect for the Historic Preservation District and the homeowners there. The fact that there was talk about parking along. I didn't see anything about bike paths and everything along there, but about parking along those streets.
1 minute.
Okay, thanks. I needed that. So that takes up so much space, and it just absolutely destroys that unique sense of home and feeling and uniqueness to Madison, Georgia. Thank you for your time and your efforts.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm Jenny Bennett, and Ray and I live on the corner of Dixie Highway and Pennington Road, and we understand with the new drawing that with the bypass coming down All Mill Road and going through Pennington, we and all our neighbors will lose a good bit of property, which is not what we're in favor of. But also, almost more importantly, are the number of walkers and joggers and bicyclists that go from Pennington to Dixie Avenue and Dixie Highway. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. And we just got a letter today from the Lions Club about a road race, their 4th or 5th road race that's going to be this Saturday. That won't be able to happen anymore. And the bicycle for Camp Twin Lakes, their fundraiser, that won't be able to come through there anymore, nor will Bike Ride Across Georgia. And so our losing property is minor compared to all the other things that will happen if the bypass goes from Oil Mill through Pennington. And I thank you for your time and the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Like I said, good evening.
Good evening.
Now, as I sat back and listened to all the comments, I thought about, first I'm George Coates.
Thank you.
I live on Cookie Road, Madison, Georgia. And to the mayor, thank you for having this meeting. And that was great when you opened the meeting explaining that this was just a draft. And that tells us a lot there. It's nothing created, so it's just a draft. So that was great. You opened a meeting to let everyone know that it's nothing in concrete. And I got up because I thought about when I was 14 and 15, I used to ride a bike to work. And it would be nice to have a sidewalk to ride a bike in. So sidewalks are great. And thank y'all for putting this together. The other thing, as I look around and listen at our youth coming after the one that here, it would be nice too if we start bringing them to the meeting, allow them to get some of their input for which our further generation, see how they feel about some of these things. So I'm hoping when I say we, all us here can participate, bringing the youth with us, someone youth, and kind of get their input, because that's their feature, and see how they look at some of the changes. And before I go back to my spot, we're talking about the bypass. I can remember the bypass out 441 when all the traffic used to come through town. We all complain about it. The bypass is great, but when you go to try to get on the other side of town on football day, it's not so easy to get across. So there are some good points and some bad points. One day out of the week is nothing compared to all the traffic coming down. So these both things are good to be done.
My name is Jean Dufort, and for 20-plus years, I've lived in the county, on the far east side of the county. But I've had an office in downtown Madison, and most of the time when I spend my money for groceries or at a Coney Roasters or to get my car washed or, whatever, right? Community Roots Market, it's in Madison. So I feel like I have a stake in Madison. In 2006, I think, I went through Leadership Morgan, and our number one issue was trucks in downtown Madison. And from my office on Main Street in Madison, I had the horror one night to watch a woman lose her life on Main Street, zipping past on a rainy night, right? So traffic on Main Street, traffic through downtown is near and dear to my heart. I have long supported the plan that Celia talked about, like, why do we need to cut through that beautiful west side of farmland where Russell lives and Pritchard Farm is and all that? Connected at the north, connected at the south. My old business was, being efficient when you were manufacturing things. So I see that as a matter of efficiency and cost, work it out. But the final thing I'll say to you, and I drive through Madison, by the way, because I play golf out at Hard Labor Creek, so one way or the other, I don't go down and pick up I-20. I come right through Madison. But if you do anything, do it with the heart of we're one Morgan. We're not two Morgans. We're not Madison and Morgan County, right? I hope, with the support of many citizens, we will have a climate into the future for solving these thorny problems where we can't imagine having big conversations about things like bypasses and all that don't include the county and the city. I get it, you're spending taxpayer dollars for Madison on Madison things, and that may be useful for things like trail systems and stuff, but when you're talking about transportation, there's not a reasonable conversation to be had that doesn't involve stakeholders in the county as well as the city, because so many of us, spend our money in Madison, work in Madison, drive through Madison. The kids in the schools, right? It's in Madison and it's out of Madison. There just isn't a transportation conversation and may to be had that makes sense, that doesn't involve a serious conversation between Morgan County and Madison. So that's what I would encourage you to do going forward. Thank you.
I want to say, if I may, real quick, just real quick. Come on in.
Or is it to try to gain parking, which is a different subject, that we're trying to back it into the thing? So parking is an issue in its own, and it has to be addressed. But I'd love to hear, what is the true benefit?
I'll ask Monica, you want to speak to that?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, we're trying to be very good at listening tonight, and so we're only answering questions that y'all ask us. And I was waiting for you to take Tim's question so that we could answer. I didn't want to not answer Tim, but we're trying to be quiet tonight. So the first thing I would say is, when we looked at that, and I'll ask Bert to come up and speak specifically to the why and wherefores and how it works best, but there were a couple of reasons we looked at that. The first one is we get reoccurring comments about downtown parking. And so the first consideration was not traffic. I want to be clear. The first consideration was parking relief. And one of the reasons we did that is because we see on Sundays that both the Methodist and Calvary are already using it that way. And so we were like, okay, so is that a way that we could gain 40 to 45 extra additional long-term on-street, untimed parking for downtown? I want to be very clear that despite a typo, and Bert, I'm going to give him some grace, he's not local, so he used Old Post and Academy interchangeably. He did not realize that at Central there is a jog, and those are different streets. So there has never been a discussion of parking on Academy or Old Post. The conversation was just in the area that is zoned commercial. The idea started off with parking, that we could gain 45 parking spaces that way. We did look at the Methodist Church circulation pattern and how they back up and stack when they drop off. We specifically looked at where residential driveways were. There are a couple of houses on that end of Academy closest to Central, but they also have back driveways into the cemetery, unlike anybody else. We specifically looked at the churches, their driveway cuts, and we also looked at the safety issues that we had when you pull out on Washington at Amici's, and then the visibility at the, and if you will go online and look at the 2 or 3 page layout Bert did, you'll see that the road migrates a little bit on First. So all of those things were considerations because we were looking at first parking and then solving transportation issues. We also looked at the reversibility of it to try it out because we were successful on High Street, and if it worked, we stripe it, then we cut those areas out and put in trees and some other things. If it doesn't work, it's reversible. It's one idea to gain additional parking. Everything else, I mean, from condemnation all the way to new parking decks, all of those are still options. None of those would not be considered, but if you're asking why we first looked at it, where's Tim? I lost him. Hey, the first look at it was to replace parking that we're worried will evaporate, so, and to relieve some of our downtown businesses. Thank you. Bert, do you want to add anything about safety?
Yeah. Yes, I could just add that we do have traffic counts for both of those streets, and actually every street in the city for this project. And there are very low counts there. Definitely looked at that as far as what could be the traffic impacts to conversion to one-way. Definitely way below any threshold that would create any kind of traffic, issues there. But I think in addition to the parking benefits, there's also the traffic calming benefits there. There's a concept just called vertical friction. So essentially, on-street parking is very valuable in terms of slowing down traffic. It creates that vertical friction that drivers experience. It's a better way to calm traffic than speed cushions. Speed cushions work. A lot of people don't like them in their neighborhoods. So that is another benefit I want to bring out to the one-way scenario with the on-street parking.
Thank you, Bert.
Good evening. I'm Diane Allman. I live at 258 Academy Street, and I did attend the meeting at Town Park. I'm even in the photograph in the plan. So I appreciated your comments earlier, Councilman Wagenhauser, regarding, oh, please calm down about the parking on Academy Street and Old Post Road. There are discrepancies with streets and what they're called in the plan, which led to a lot of confusion, and those things need to be corrected so that we understand. Also, there was no detail. It simply said, convert Academy Street to one-way and add parking. And then there's a diagram that shows parking on Academy Street. It didn't say from point A to point B. It said Academy Street, which runs from Washington Street to Walton Street. Okay? And then it talks about Old Post, and in one place it mentions First Street. So I think there's some calling the northern part of Old Post Road, which is really First Street. So there's a lot in here that has caused confusion, which needs to be straightened out. And now my question for Monica is when she says, oh, we're proposing parking along Academy and First Street that's going to provide 40 parking spaces, and I'm not understanding where those 40 parking spaces are going to be. And you're mentioning that, no, we're not planning to put on-street parking in the residential part of Academy Street. So how do you come up with 40 parking spaces on First Street and what is tiny little bit of Academy Street if you don't push that parking up into the residential area? So that's the question, since we are allowed to ask questions. Thank you.
So, do we want to ask Monica to answer that?
Let's listen to this gentleman.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to come speak. I'm Cameron Smoke. I live on Brooks Road, where the western bypass would take my home, take my neighbor's home, take my daughter's home, this sort of thing. I come to offer maybe a couple of solutions that may get to what the general said is doing something pretty quickly is, first of all, maybe go ahead and designate the eastern bypass truck route. That'll take a lot of trucks out. In 2011, we were in this room talking about the western bypass then, and that was one of the options then, but that's 14 years ago. The other option would be maybe think more regionally, and I believe a large percentage of the problem with truck traffic downtown is 83 coming into Main Street is the Walmart distribution center. So work with Walton County, maybe Monroe, City of Monroe, Newton County. They could come around the southeastern part of Monroe, connect to Highway 11. Highway 11 comes all the way down Social Circle, bypass around Social Circle on Highway 11. You come to that four-way stop, there's a lot of warehouses right there, a lot of truck traffic right there. Cut straight through there, come out over on 278, right at the end of where they've done that elaborate, very nice expansion for Rivian in there, connect right there, and then they've got a straight shot to I-20, and then going either way. Rivian's coming, I'm pretty sure of that, but there's going to be a lot more infrastructure built up through there, so why not maybe work with our regional partners and address it that way. That would at least be something we could start with, and then a large part of the traffic would be eliminated there. Thank you.
Got it. Okay. Where's Diane? Diane, you're always allowed to ask questions. You just have to ask them to them, and then I get to respond. So the first thing is, if you haven't been online to the website, we basically just took all our file folders and dumped them into the folder so everybody in town would have accessibility. Diane, if you haven't looked at this plan that looks like this, it should give you. That is the concept plan for the one-way pairs and how many spaces it would produce and where it would be located. That is an idea, that's all it is. It was a test drive to see if it would work. So that is accessible for everybody to look and to look at the number of spaces that would be garnered, and I was thrilled that you gave traffic counts because I did not have those. I wanted to make sure that I corrected one other thing that seems to be floating. We've heard it a couple of times. I hope y'all give me just a little forbearance. I don't want to get into a debate, but I think that I can at least qualm some ideas that I'm hearing float. So the first thing is, I'm hearing this idea about going through the Brooks Road area, the gentleman that just spoke very nicely. That seems to represent a little bit of a sentiment. I heard Mr. Brooks also spoke to that. That appears to be a reflection of commentary on the old location of the bypass. That was the 2007 plan to 2024. If you're looking at the new one that's right here on the screen, it's only a northern arc. There is no intention of Pennington Road. That was GDOT's idea. There's no intention of Pennington Road. There's no going through the Brownwood area. There's no connecting 83 and Oil Mill up to 441. All of that is a fallacy. That is not this plan. That is the old plan. So I want to make sure there's no parking has ever been proposed on Old Post. And we are not using the city and county conversation about old bypass plans. We did, that's the other thing Molly wanted me to share, is I want to remind everybody, we did have a county representative on our work group. I might have said no earlier, but we did have a county representative, we had a city representative, we had a young person, we had a downtown person from the historic district, and we had a downtown person that was a business person from a historic district. So there seems to be some confusion about who was on the work group. And there was one other thing.
Monica, while you're looking at
I'm
one
trying to
other
answer
thing-
questions I heard.
Monica,
Yes,
while you're
sir.
looking, sorry.
John
just
only
wanna-
said I could speak 3 times this
I want to
counts.
revise that you said absolutely no parking on Old Post. You mean residential Old Post? Or all of?
Old Post ends at Central.
Right.
There is there's no parking proposed for Old Post. It was only on First Street, where it starts at Central and it goes to where we've already turned it one way at Bank of Madison, around the backside.
So I'm sure there's other people like me that consider that still to be Old Post, so.
Yes,
thank you for the
and so did
clarification.
Bert, which has led to a lot of our confusion. So yes, it is only from Central, which is where we are holding downtown, so it will not eat the historic district. It is from Central back to Washington, that is the proposal. And again, if you want to see those parking spaces and that temporary stripe off, that's online for anybody to view and come in for comments. And I wanted to thank Bruce Gilbert, who actually came into our offices and made us aware that there was an error in the Old Post versus First Street, and that's where we first learned of it on Friday. So I wanted to appreciate that he came into the office and let us know. Was there something else you wanted me to correct or? Okay, then I'm going to hold one more back. John says I get 3, so I'm holding one back.
Oh, Diane?
Now that I have this additional plan, which I'd like to share with you, it does show parking on the residential section of Academy Street.
I've seen it. It is in front of a residence. It is not residentially, that's in the downtown development area. So it runs up to Academy, but it does not go past Central. It's not supposed to. I'm sorry? I understand that. We have residents in our commercial zone. That is true.
May I just respond? It's still in this plan, the western bypass is, and in, I think it was April 25th, 2011, this body, as it existed at that point, voted to remove that from the plan, and it passed with one dissenting vote, but it's still in there. So that's, if there's no plan to use that, please take that out of this and do away with it. The western bypass down Brooks Road. Thank you.
If I may, that was the overview, the historic overview of transportation planning and the major transportation plan. That confused me too. I promise you, I looked at that and thought, what? But that first map that we come to in this plan is the old one, and it's our planner is explaining this is how the evolution of the transportation plan.
And in the paragraph preceding that picture in there, it does state about this plan, when funded in 2035, would be a bypass. So that's why everybody's here about Brooks Road area out there. So
The language could be better.
I understand the confusion. Thank you.
Mayor Benson. I'm Mary McCauley. I live on Dixie Highway, and Bob and I moved here 27 years ago, and we think we've died and come to heaven. I lived in Atlanta as a young person, and they proposed a bypass in Atlanta, and when they started making room for the road, my father would take us out and we would target shoot in the red clay banks because we were young and we thought that was fun. And then after many years, the highway was built, and in my opinion, it was not built far enough away from Atlanta because people built around the bypass and Atlanta moved in, and now it's just chock-a-block all the way from the middle of Atlanta out beyond the bypass. So my suggestion is that when you talk to the county commissioners, you think about getting this road away from Madison, and if you can, talk to them about providing some sort of protection for agricultural land when the bypass goes through. And if you can talk them into it, don't let them put a filling station on every corner at every intersection. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, Rebecca Rakosi, 614 South Main, and I wasn't going to talk, but the one thing, I live on South Main, and I'm asking, is there any way we can, I know, reduce traffic, and we can talk about what General Whitcomb said that reducing speed limits on his street, and I know it's a state and it's also a highway and a U.S. highway, but man, people just speed down Main, and it's dangerous, and I call it the wall, because you cannot walk, you have to take your life in your hands. Flags don't do any good. Sometimes people stop, sometimes they don't, so you just have to go like a little squirrel running across the street. And so I'm just asking, low-hanging fruit, enforce speed limits. One thing, and that is a low-hanging fruit. As soon as they do, and I've been told in the past, well, be careful what you wish for, because it might be you or your friends that are getting tickets. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, because I really need people to slow down. And also, the noise of the trucks, that using those special mufflers or whatever they do, it's pretty bad. And that's against the law, and that's not being enforced either. So, two things, that's all I ask. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having all of us. I'm Jennifer Lockridge. I live at the end of Porter Street, one block over from Kolb, so I have feelings. But instead, I'm going to say that I really appreciate, we moved here from Atlanta, escaping many things, but one of the things I loved about Madison, and the reason we chose to live here, is the walkability. I'm legally blind. I do not drive, so traffic is important, but I also, as a pedestrian, everybody sees me walking everywhere. I really appreciate the inclusion of all of the sidewalks that are recommended, new crosswalks, improved safety at some of the existing crosswalks, and the medians in the middle, so you have a safe place to dodge the traffic. I really appreciate those things, and especially the crosswalks on South Main, echoing Rebecca. I'm in several walking groups where we cross Main Street in that area, and it's taking your life in your hands. And so with the addition of those crosswalks, I just want to say that I think it's very important that we lower the speed limit if you're going to have crosswalks there, because like Rebecca said, people just speed down that road. So as someone who's nearly been hit, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
May I ask just a question about traffic counts? Because I heard the comments about traffic counts, and in the report it says, generally Madison's traffic levels are not high. That's quote, end quote, in the draft report, and that is not my experience. On one of the maps, it shows the triangle intersection at 441 at South Main and 278 as a level of service A. And I just I can't believe my eyes. I'm looking at it several times, because that is a terrible, terrible intersection. It is certainly not a level of service A. It cites that the level of service on South Main Street, where I live, is a level of service C. And I looked at the GDOT information, it's probably been 6 months ago, so it may be worse now, or a year ago, and it was an E. It's the data that's reflected in this report is inaccurate in a number of places, and I don't think we can fairly evaluate what we need without accurate data on the traffic counts. So I'd ask if anybody has any explanation for that. How can we call the triangle an A? And
you know, and encourage you to, in the revisions, you know, make sure that the data is accurate before we start making decisions
I'll ask
based
Monica
on
to
it.
respond to that.
So I'm going to call on Bert to respond to that, but I think that it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we know we hired a subject matter expert that would pull the data from the right sources. So while some people might think that A represents how safe the area is, Bert's going to come tell us what the A actually represents based on transportation data formulas.
Yes, so the level of service is based on delay. So a level of service A means you may stay at that intersection for one cycle of a signal or for a certain length of time, like an all-way stop or a two-way stop. And really, it's not a measure of safety. We did do a very in-depth safety analysis that looked closely at all the crash locations. And the triangle intersection, they do have significant safety issues. And that's one of the biggest things we really tried to address in the schematic design as a concept for what could happen at that intersection. And, gosh, I had one more point. We also have very good speed data for every street in the city. So that's the main corridors, the smaller streets. We know the average speeds, the 85th percentile speeds, 75th percentile speeds. So we did really key in to those areas where cars are going faster than the speed limit, and also looked at where crashes are happening, where fatal crashes are happening, and also pedestrian crashes, and really tried to key the recommendations to address those specific locations.
Oh, you okay? Yeah. Okay. So if you would like us to do some additional mapping to indicate those, remember that the last transportation plan was in the 400-page zone. We were instructed to do a community face-forward plan this time that was more consumable, but we can certainly provide data on safety, but LOS is the standard that GDOT applies to it. It's a transportation standard, and that's based on level of service that you're receiving there, not safety standards. So that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that we got correct, and we don't have any false data. A lot of our data is drawn from GDOT and provided, so we may need to do a better job interpreting it. We'll certainly try to do that, but there's not inaccurate data, and I want to be clear about that. So two other things. Dixie as a corridor. This is one of the things we read a lot in the comments today. I want to make sure that we state clearly that it's been labeled a corridor, which is nomenclature, not an intent to develop it. It has been that nomenclature since 2007. This is not new information. The other thing that's not new is this idea that as land that is undeveloped develops, it should follow not a cul-de-sac collector loading system. It should follow the grid system that we all value that has lent our town its unique character. So if you will look at the 2007 plan, there's this representative, I heard one gentleman use such a great word that I did not use, but it's like a schematic of a grid over everything. Paul Anderson's actually carried that to fruition in his idea. Those are representative, and all that means is when that land comes in for development, we have the ability to say, you need to connect up. So those are what those roads show. There is no bypass or connection that we're looking to do across the Pritchard land. Let me be very clear. That's no intention there. It's meant to say that when we have new development go in, hopefully that land stays undeveloped for the next 100 years. But our undeveloped tracts, as they come in, we want to make them use the subdivision ordinance to have as many connections as possible. I think that I have addressed everything I heard that was either a little bit off. Oh, and lastly, I'm a resident of South Main, 892 South Main, and I invite you, every one of you, to do what I do every morning when it takes me 15 minutes to get out of my driveway. I get on Main Street because no one slows down, and this is my comment to my council member, no one slows down to 35, and I mean no one, people in this room included, until they get down to Hill Park. People are going 55 around the intersection, coming around, and they do not slow down. I've even been in the car with a former city manager headed toward the hospital, going 65. God bless his heart, Miss Lambert was in the car at least. And so he was at least careful of her life, if not mine. But I will say that the best thing any resident can do is join me, and when you get on Main Street, offer your traffic calming services. I go 35 miles an hour, no matter if they ride my bumper all the way down the road, and I enforce the speed limit. And I will say, John, one brag on you, that the chief did say that as soon as he's at full staff, he plans to put a 2-person speed control team together, and it's helping with recruitment. And for the first time in 10 years, there was a police car who pulled somebody over in front of my house 3 weeks ago. First time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Could I just add, I've noticed that more than a few people have had to depart. And before too many people have to leave, I'm sure, and we've heard repeatedly, people are concerned about the process. Might Ms. Molly or Monica give us an idea? Because there are plans for future meetings before any decisions are made, and I'm sure all of you would like to know what's in store.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, in addition to the engagement we did sort of on the front end, we fully incorporated this engagement process into the planning process as a whole. So, as I mentioned at the work session on, I believe it was the 28th, it was completely up to you how you sort of wanted to handle that moving forward. You all decided to have a town hall. We had assumed at regular meetings, public hearings of that nature, one or the other, it doesn't really matter, and as many as you like, really. We had planned for 2. If you want to do more than that, that's we want to hear as many comments as we can get. I'm equally as excited about having this many people in a room to talk about a plan. So we often will get comments. I expect that you all will want to discuss this and sort of brainstorm what sort of changes you want to see to the plan based on these comments at your work session. And then let us know how we can change the plan, how we can update it. We make those updates. We get that out to you and the public as soon as possible. And then we look at it again and say, did this sort of address the concerns that you had? Does this address the concerns the council had? And do we need to go through another iteration of changes? Or does this feel like it's meeting a lot of the goals that we have? And sort of go through that. So there's an established plan, but it's also a little organic in that you can have as many as you like. Again, we planned for 2 sort of iterations of something of this nature, but if you'd like to do more, happy to do that as well. So, yes. Correct. We are not on a deadline for the state. So,
do we have any dates in mind yet, or are those forthcoming?
I would just expect that you would do that at your next work session. Yes. So if that's what you'd like to do, I'll make sure, Deborah and I will make sure it gets on your agenda, and we can sit down and have that discussion.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Molly. And it's a little after 7 o'clock. We'll be here an hour and a half. And I would personally like to thank each of you for coming tonight to tell us how you feel. And our council members and our staff have been taking many notes tonight. So we will probably talk about this again at our next work session. But keep one thing in mind, please. We're all talking about a bypass. But there is nobody in this room who wants the bypass near them. So which way do you go? But we have a good planning staff. We have good council members who can make sound decisions. And hopefully before it's over, we will find out what the next bypass will be. And you will know. And I hope that you come back again to voice your opinion. Thanks again for coming, and this meeting is adjourned.